Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Just the Tip. As usual, I am your host, LabMonkey, and today I have a very special episode in store for you. Another Just the Tip episode with someone else. So this time I have decided to do an episode about my recent 5v5 Grand Arena experience in Division 1. And you may be thinking to yourself, wait a second, Lab, you're in like Division 5 or something, right? And yes, that's correct. My account is in Division 5, but I tagged along for the ride with my none other than my guild leader himself, Grandmaster Thol Vizsla, uh, however many tags you want to give yourself. But yeah, he's one of the yellow names in the server, and he is the guild leader of Mandalore. Say hi to everyone, Thol.
Hola. Thanks for
Yes,
having me on here. And
absolutely.
and just to clarify, you did not tag along. I was the vessel for which you could play your Division One GAC dreams. So
Well, I mean, there was give and take. Um, but anyways,
I think we were doing well if I was helpful during one battle during the entire GAC match. So I felt like if I contributed to one thing, then I was doing well.
all right, all right. Well, you're underselling yourself by a lot, but let's not argue this point anymore. Um, so yes, Thol and I did. We actually didn't do all 12 matches together. I think we started on the championship match of the first week, if I
Hmm.
recall correctly. You had a pretty interesting matchup, and I think correct me if I'm wrong. I think the way it happened was you kind of asked for some help in the server, and then I started giving you my ideas, and then
Hmm.
before we knew it, I was streaming one of the fights with you, and then from then on, we just like kept doing everything, all of the
Yes, right.
planning, all of the streaming, all of the battling, all of the rest of the matches. That's how it went. So,
Exactly. Yeah,
um,
that's right. So I won the first two on my own, and
yes,
I think it was against obviously some not very good opponents, and then wanted to keep my record intact. So I started asking some questions, and then it really got exciting with was it the first match of the second round, or maybe it was the second match, one of the two. But I'm sure you'll talk about that one.
yes. Both the first and the second match of the second week were bangers. Um, but yes, that's kind of how it happened, and I'm glad that we did it. And there's a lot of reasons why I'm glad we did it. It was very helpful to me, and I'm going to try to pass along some of the stuff I learned to my listeners here. So that is the goal here. So just a couple of tidbits about what is going on in Division One. Just to be clear, this particular season of GAC that Thol and I played together. This was weeks 67 through week 70. So if you're looking on the Swigo.gg history, those are the 4 weeks that we played together. He went 10-2 over the course of those 12 matches, and got a pretty solid place. I forget exactly where you placed. I think it was in the top 100. Um,
Yeah, I think it was. Yeah, I think that's
yeah,
right.
yeah.
Hmm.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but I also believe this was the first Grand Arena after they made all of those big division changes. Either that or it was not long afterwards. It doesn't really matter.
Yeah, I think it was the first 5v5 after the division changes.
Yes, that's right.
Maybe.
3v3.
Yeah.
Yep,
Right.
that's
Right.
right.
Hmm.
All right. So yes, the first 5v5 after the division changes. So the reason that's significant is because in Division One, the cutoff is 7.8 million GP. You have to be above that to be in Division One now. And for that very first 5v5, there were not that many people in Division One. Something
No.
like, I think there was like 2,000 ish players
2000, I
total.
think. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's right. Hmm.
And, and the thing is, almost all of those 2,000 players were are good players who have been in the game for a long time, who have all of the toys and are in high-end guilds. There are exceptions, of course, but for the most part, I mean, I don't remember very many matches that we had, if any, that were just like pushovers.
Yeah,
Everything
no.
was
Yeah, and there aren't rarely any like auto set defenses that you see with
yeah,
those accounts too.
it's
So
true.
everyone plays.
It's true. Yeah, we did not face any auto set. That's for sure. So, in case you are listening to this and you're not aware, Division One for 5v5, they have to set 11 teams on defense, not including ships. We're talking just squads, 11 teams. And then, of course, you need at least 11 teams on offense to be able to go against your opponent if you are being efficient and one-shotting everything. So that's a minimum of 22 teams that you need in Division One. So that really does get into kind of the dregs of your account. You kind of have to come up with some creative stuff, especially if you want to set a tough defense for your opponent. You have to be, I mean, you are walking a very fine line when you get to Division One, at least right now. And that will change as more characters are released. Until, of course, they increase division sizes again and increase number of teams. But that's probably not going to happen for a little while. So, Division One, you go pretty far down your roster, and you use a lot of characters in order to do it. So it's not really like Territory Wars, where you use the top end of your roster and that's it. Grand Arena is much more punishing to those people who don't have depth. Compare and contrast that to the current division that I'm finishing up in. This will be my last season in Division 5 that I'm in right now, where I only have to play 7 teams on the ground and, of course, take 7 teams on offense. That's only 14 teams. That's like, what, 60% of the number of teams that you do? Something like that?
Yeah.
It's
Right.
It's a significant difference. And I think we're about 3 million GP apart, give or take a little bit.
Yeah, I'm 8 point. Well, then I was, because that was before Lord Vader and Executor, so maybe like 8.2, I think, around there.
Yeah, and I was hovering right around 5 million there, but now I'm like almost 5.4 million, I think, because of freaking Executor.
Right.
All right. Anyways, yeah, I'll be going to Division 4 next season. So let's not belabor that anymore. Division 1 and Division 5, lots of differences. That was one of the main reasons why I wanted to do this with you, is because, and why it was so interesting to me, is because I knew that I would see a lot different teams that I had never seen before. And I would have to figure out how to plan a strategy with teams that I had never had to plan for and with. So it was definitely, it was very interesting. I learned a lot from it, and I'm glad that we were able to do it. Any overarching thoughts before I get into some of the highlights of the different matches that we did?
I mean, I just really I enjoyed it as well, mainly because I learned a lot about some different things to use and different things on offense that I hadn't thought of trying before. One of the ones that I really liked was putting Moff Gideon with bounty hunters to use as for the turn meter reduction at the start. And so that was pretty helpful. And obviously, you don't need him with your trooper team to beat a Darth Revan squad. So that was a good use of him. And so just little things like that I hadn't thought of were very helpful. And so, I mean, that was probably one of the biggest things that I took out of this whole thing, is that if people want to learn more about how to do their GAC, stream your GAC battles, do it on the server and do it with other people watching. People aren't going to think less of you if you lose or anything like that, but you get input and insight from other people, things that you may not have thought of before. And it's very helpful for later on, for sure.
Absolutely. That's a great point. And just to be clear, I learn new things from other players all the time. Whether it's from text on other servers or whether it's watching other people stream, or anything in between. So there's always new stuff to learn, and if you are trying to compete and be one of the better GAC players, then it behooves you to try to learn from other players who probably have experience in different areas with different teams than you do, and pick up the best things and incorporating them into your roster and strategy. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. And if you think that you're the best player out there and you don't need any help, you're going to fail to start with. So don't even bother.
That's very true. That's very true. It is surprising how many extremely good players there are out there. Yeah. So speaking of good players, let's talk briefly about kind of some of the matches that we had. So the first week was kind of whatever. I didn't do a whole lot with you on that in that first week, and the championship match the guy ended up not being as strong as we thought he was going to be on paper.
Right.
So, but the first match of the second week, we played a guy named Rescue Me 2. And it's funny because he's on the Gambit server. He's one of the guys that hangs out on Zareth and Solobase's server, so he knows his stuff. And this was his big account. And we we set a very tough defense, and he also set a very tough defense, and we beat him in a slugfest. I think there was our Treya team that we put in the back surprised him and held the line after he slogged through all of our GLs. So that was a fun match. That was a good win to get under the belt early, because it kind of proved the concept of putting a strong defense against a good player can sometimes do a lot of work for you. Because this guy was I just checked his lifetime banners, and he's over 900k. He's 915k right now. So this is one of the top players, and he's quite good. And we beat him.
Yep.
The guy that we played second in that week after Rescue Me was possibly an even more impressive win. And the reason I say that is because he is... I don't remember if Zareth has lost any more since he played against this guy. But Zareth lost to this guy. His name at the time was Dihas, and he had like a little Greek symbol. I think it's the Greek symbol for Psi.
Right.
And he had recently beaten Zareth on an efficiency match. Like, he kept a bunch of GLs on offense. He was able to power through Zareth's defense and beat him on efficiency, if I recall that stream correctly. Or maybe he played Zareth really, really close. I can't remember now. It's been too long. But anyways, the point is that he played one of the top players in the game very, very close. Whether he won or lost is not that important. And when we were prepping for him, I remember knowing that he was an efficiency player and planning to try to beat him at his own game. And we've tried to play efficiency, and when the smoke cleared, he did not drop any battles to us. He one-shot our entire board, and we actually dropped one battle. I think it was in the fleet, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I think it was a fleet battle.
We had a fleet battle that we dropped, and we thought we had lost, but we ended up actually beating this guy by 15 banners. Even though he one-shot our board and we had a fail, because we were that much more efficient than he was in the other battles. So that was actually a really awesome win. One of my favorites for sure. And it goes to show that if you do plan well for an efficiency match, even if you get crappy fleet RNG, whatever, you know how fleet is. Fleet is fleet. Sometimes RNG just decides to smack you down.
Yes.
And I'm pretty sure that's what happened to us there. So it was really disappointing to lose that battle. but it was extremely thrilling to actually win the match based on our efficiency in the other zones. Yeah, that was one of my favorites for sure. And the fun didn't stop there because after I think it was a somewhat forgettable championship match in the second week. But the third week we were in the bracket of death in the third week. And
Yes.
this was, I don't know about you, this was my favorite week looking back on it because of who we beat.
Right.
So our very first match was against Solo Base 15.
And ironically, this was GAC week 69.
Just FYI. It was GAC week 69. That's a great point. I'm glad you brought it up.
It's Blue Milk's favorite relic level.
It is. It is. I'll have to remind you of that later. So Solo Base was our week one matchup. And just so you guys know, he is just shy of 1 million GAC lifetime banners right now. He's like 970K. And he streams regularly. He's a very, very strong player. And we actually ended up beating him on an efficiency match. We one-shot his entire board. And the way that we set up the defense, we put all of our A-tier teams that we knew he would have to kind of make a choice on based on our what we could have hiding in the back. And we kind of cheesed the back zone a little bit.
We faked them out.
Yep, exactly. And we set this up based on our strong defensive history in the previous weeks. So he obviously scouted us. He's always scouted us. He always scouts his opponents, and he saw that we set typically 3 GLs on defense, and so he prepared for that. And he had a fail on the front zone on our General Skywalker team.
Yep.
And we were able to beat him by 19 banners.
Yeah. I remember watching that. So there were some people that used to be in the Alliance that were watching his stream of our defense when he was attacking us, and they were like, "I'm pretty sure he's probably out there watching," and they were not wrong. I was watching, and so were you, I think. But it was hilarious. Well, the first thing was he put the wrong Mando with his BAM team. He put the Mandalorian instead of Beskar Armor Mando with his BAM team, and so I guess it wasn't a BAM team at that point. And so that was a big fail on his part, which was an accident, of course, and that sucks for him. But then when he did the battle against General Skywalker with his SOKR, it was like all of a sudden it was just over, and he was like, "What the hell just happened?" It was just so funny. It was so funny the way that it happened. He was like, "Did that seriously just happen?" I mean, it was so bizarre.
So I did not watch it live. I watched the entire run after he posted it. I forget if it was the following day or what. Yeah, but I remember watching the gas fight while he was taking SLKR, and I was like, yeah, this is why I never take SLKR against gas, because if you get the wrong RNG, if he stands up at the wrong time, yeah, he can actually kill you.
Yep.
And that's what happened. So you know, sometimes you need a little RNG to roll your way to beat a good opponent, and that definitely happened in that case. Although I will say, just because we only won by 19 banners, I mean, I think we still might have edged him out in efficiency by a couple of banners, because his cleanup, I forget how many banners he scored, but you know, there's no guarantee that you can go into gas and one-shot him with like a 55 or something like that. He could have gotten a 51 or 52 and lost by a couple banners for sure. So, anyways, we've belabored that match enough. But that was definitely an epic match, and one that I wasn't fully expecting to win. I knew we had a chance, but was extremely gratifying to get the W there.
Yeah, he actually used, I'm looking at it right now, he used Geos to clean up that General Skywalker, and none of them had full protection, so he only got 35 banners on the cleanup.
Okay. All right. So he would have had to have scored a 54 or better on the one shot to have tied and or beaten us. So,
Mm-hmm.
I mean that's right along the edge of where gas kind of resides in terms
Yeah,
of how
well,
many.
and he went in with a full FO team, which
Yeah.
means that he probably would have lost a bunch of tunes before, even if he would have won.
Correct.
So
Yeah. 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 So, moving on, our second match was against Kubert, and I'd never heard of Kubert before, but Kubert is an extremely good player. He beat a guy who is over a million GP lifetime now, or GP lifetime banners now. Um, Hens. So he beat him in round one to get to us in round two. And currently Kubert is like 922K lifetime. Another very strong player. And we were able to beat him as well um, to move on to the final. And the final was against a guy named Coco Fire, who was also a strong opponent, but ironically, probably the weakest one that we faced in this bracket. Um,
mhm.
his current lifetime is 822K. And he must have had the easy side of the bracket while we went up the bracket of death. And so I was determined that we were not going to lose to this guy after working so hard to get to the finals. And fortunately, we did not. So we ended up winning a bracket of death with multiple high-end players in it. And we had to go through three very good players to get the win on the bracket. And that's probably one of my favorite GAC weeks that I've ever been in. So,
Yeah, it was definitely my favorite.
yeah, yeah, that was really cool. So in the last bracket, we went 2-1. We lost to a guy named Donkey Punch in the second round, and he's another extremely good player. He's at 925K lifetime right now. I believe he was the one. No, that was in 3v3. No, it wasn't 5. I believe he was the one that set that Ray with Armorer, and we tried to use C against him, and then Armorer got her buff on Ray, and then C just couldn't seal the deal. I think that was it. If not, maybe he was just an efficiency player that beat us on efficiency. I don't remember. I remember it being very close though,
Mm-hmm.
and being very disappointed that we couldn't finish out that last week bracket on top. But we did get 2-1 again, so it was another pretty good week in Division One. So let's move on to the meat of what I really wanted to talk about, and that is what did I learn from this experience. So the first thing that I took away from this is that Division One is very taxing at high level GAC play. And Thol, you can back me up on this, but having to scout and plan for that many teams every single round that you do is quite a bit of work if you want to do it properly, and if you want to find the little weaknesses that your opponents have, especially if they're good players. And that was I was quite tired at the end of week 4 when when we were done with this. And don't get me wrong, some of that is because I was also planning and doing my own GACs
Mm-hmm.
during this week. So it
Yeah,
wasn't completely from this, but yeah.
yeah. No, I would agree. I mean, even because obviously I did the next 3v3 and 5v5 so far on my own, and
Yeah.
I can totally see how you end up with a lot of Division 1 players that set the same defense all the time, just because
Yeah.
it takes so long to go in and figure out, because like you said earlier, the number of teams that you have to place limits you so much on offense, so that if you're going to try to full clear your opponent and one shot everything and be efficient and set a tough defense, I mean, it takes a lot of planning. And, like I think at one point we talked about that being good at GAC is like 80% planning and 20% execution. If you
Yes.
can plan it right and then execute, of course. But if you can plan it right, you can win the majority of your GACs. But it takes the time to plan it, and it takes so much more time. And now that we've got conquest going on and all these other things going on, it's like, where do I have time to plan out my GAC battles? So that's the I would agree. That's the worst thing about it, is just the amount of planning that has to go into it to do it right.
Yep, it's the best and the worst thing, because I feel a strong sense of gratification every time my plan comes together and works out, and I crush my opponent, or even I just barely squeak by them because I had exactly what I needed, or I put down exactly the right defense to kind of flummox them based on what they usually do. So I mean that's very gratifying, but yeah, it does take a lot.
Yeah. And it's also equally frustrating when you don't win, when you
Sure.
spend that much time on it and you don't come out with a victory. That happened to me just a couple of days ago. I messaged Lab. I was like, I don't know that you want me talking about GAC right now because I hate it. I spent like 2 hours preparing for this guy and I got obliterated. And it was just like, with the changes now with Executor and with Lord Vader. Apparently, one of the new things now is everybody dropping all their GLs on defense and just watching everybody flail around like a fish out of water, basically. So that happened to me last round, and I was more than slightly mad about it. So.
Yeah, those losses can be super irritating, and I can say that the losses, the sting is always. I mean, it's always bad whenever you lose, but the sting is lessened a little bit as long as you lost because of a specific reason that you can identify and fix.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, if I can learn a good lesson from a loss, then I can eventually learn to live with it. If I lose because I did something boneheaded that was completely preventable and I knew better and I did it anyway, those are the losses. Those are the losses that make you want to rage quit.
Yeah.
Yep.
I was there just a few days ago. I was there.
I hear you. I know. I know, buddy. We you beat it. Thankfully, we talked you off the ledge. So yeah, Division 1 is taxing. So just I guess the moral of the story is don't race to get to Division 1. Enjoy the journey. Division 1 has its own perks, for sure. And you want to watch your favorite streamers and have all the toys they do, but just remember there are drawbacks as well. So enjoy the journey. Enjoy every phase. The second thing that I learned, or maybe not learned, but it was definitely hammered home to me, is that, and this is even before the sweeping changes that CG made, where they nerfed a bunch of the off-meta counters. But GLs dominate the planning and the outcome of GAC. And I'm sure Thol will again back me up here, but I can tell you firsthand from the amount of time that I spent planning those defenses, I would say at least 75% of my time and energy was spent on either what GLs I could set on defense to trip up the opponent, or what GLs I needed to keep on offense in order to deal with their own GLs. And not put us in danger of not clearing a front zone or something like that and losing horribly. I'm sure that is probably still the same for you during your current GAC, especially with the changes. I don't see that changing, and if anything, it's probably even worse. But even if you go 1 degree away from the GLs, a lot of my planning for other teams like GAS, Darth Revan, CLS was tangentially related to how can I make them burn a GL counter before they see the specific GL in the back.
Mm-hmm.
So even when you're not specifically planning GL teams, you're planning for GL teams.
Right.
So I guess I say this to hammer home the point that if you are planning on being competitive in GAC and you're not one of those like uh, those sandbag accounts that only has G12 Darth Revan and G12 Jedi Knight Revan and all your other stuff is purple and you're a terrible player but you think you're a god because you only play the game for one game mode. If you're not that kind of player, which I don't think anybody in our alliance is, um, then you need to make sure that you are getting GLs. um, and of course, it's a long, drawn out farm. But if you upgrade your matchup GP too much without getting a GL, you will be in trouble, especially in this new era of very few off meta counters being available to killing GLs in one shot. So, yeah, the GLs are a black hole that warp everything around them, and GAC especially, GAC and TW, the two big PvP modes, GLs are super important. I know this is not groundbreaking, this is not rocket science, but thought I would just mention it because it's never been more true in my SWOGA journey than it was when I was playing Division One with you. What do
Yeah.
you think? Am I off base here at all?
No, not at all. Not at all. And one of the like when you get to Division 1, it's like the pressure if you want to be competitive in GAC, and there's people in Division 1 that, they play but they don't care if they win or lose. And if you want to be competitive in Division 1, you've got to get the GLs ASAP. And CG knows that. And
Yep.
so that's why they, a lot of this stuff is geared toward the Division 1 players as far as like spending so that you can get, shockingly enough, the packs with energy came out in them that you can buy right around the time when everybody should be trying to get dark side tickets to get their ultimate mats right before the next GAC bracket starts. Funny how that works.
Serendipitous.
Maybe, yeah, it's ironic how that happens. I don't know why that happens, but and so like it crossed my mind to maybe try and get Lord Vader's ultimate done before this next bracket started, and I was like, I'm not gonna kill myself or spend a bunch of money to do that. But that's the way this game is geared for the Division 1 player. For the lower division players, I mean, it's really possible for the people in lower divisions like yourself, you can outnumber your opponent in GLs. And if you do, you're going to almost guarantee yourself a win as long as you're not an idiot when you're planning stuff. So, I mean, that's the difference between the lower divisions and Division 1 is that Division 1, you have to have all the things to be competitive. Like, you have to have an executor, and it probably should be 6 or 7 star, and you have to have.
Okay, and we are back after a slight technical difficulty with the recording bot. And I don't know exactly where we left off, so let's just do a quick refresher on the last point that we were doing, which is that mod prep is number one. And that's basically it. If you if you want to be competitive in any division that you're in, but especially in Division 1, you have to have your teams modded in such a way that where you are intentional about what you are going to be doing with them. So bounty hunters with Moff Gideon to kill teams like BAM and Gas, that is one very intentional mod setup that you can do. Mon Mothma to kill Grievous if you have the right characters. That is another very intentional thing that you can do, was the speeding up Kara and Mon Mothma and giving them enough tenacity to withstand some of those target locks early. That is another very, very nice way to leverage some of your mods in order to punch up. So, since I don't know exactly where the recording cut off,
Hopefully you didn't miss the part about our two idiots. But
that's right.
If it did, then people will just have to be in suspense, and maybe they can DM either me or you to find out about the two idiots.
That sounds like a good plan to me. The two idiots. Believe it or not, the two idiots is not me and Thol. It's something else.
Neither is Tweedledee or Tweedledum,
Yeah.
which the two idiots were lovingly named.
Yes, unless you talk to our wives, and then we are definitely the two idiots.
Absolutely, 100%.
All right. So the very last point that I wanted to make, the thing that I learned, and this is something that I have changed up my own personal play style because of learning this on my own account, which is in Division 5, soon to be Division 4. But that is that setting a tough defense will win you matches, even sometimes, even when you don't execute on offense the way that you want to.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, there were multiple matches where we came up with a plan. We executed on most of it. We kind of got hung up a little bit on one or two teams, and didn't execute exactly, the way that we wanted to. Left a lot of manners out there on the field. Thought we were done for. And then our opponent attacked and they couldn't clear, or they also struggled, and we ended up winning. And this is a play style that doesn't get you rank 1 in your division, in your championship. So if that's something that you're going for, don't do this. But if you're looking to be more consistent and win more matches, then I strongly recommend at least taking a look at how much harder of a defense you can set while still having a chance to full clear.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the play style that Zareth uses. It's not the play style that Solo uses exactly. Solo is a lot more of an efficiency player than Zareth is, but and they're both excellent players. And I say that to say that there is value in multiple different play styles, and being able to play multiple different play styles actually will elevate your game and will allow you to beat opponents that you might not be able to beat if you're one dimensional. But with that said, I think that the best way to play right now, the default setting for me, is strong defense and leave the possibility that I might not full clear if my opponent also sets a strong defense. But that has allowed me to win more matches than I probably would have otherwise.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think about this strategy?
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, unless you think you're going to like do all the stupid feats like a battle with Goku and General or Jedi Knight Anakin to get 100 extra banners and possibly get in the top 10 of your GAC division. Unless if you're not that person, then definitely setting a stronger defense. I mean, the old adage, defense wins championships, and it's very true in this game as well. Like you said, it leaves you a little bit more margin for error on offense. If you set a stronger defense, if you set a weaker defense, if you screw up on offense, then you're done. So yeah, I mean, I agree with you completely. And a lot of it too that I've figured out more now with having 6 GLs instead of 5 is that you better start. You can't just like in the past, like when we did this together, we put a lot of our GLs in the back and we didn't put many in the front.
Yeah.
Now I'm thinking that with that many GLs, you got to start putting GLs in the front, and then the only question is whether or not you put GLs in the back or not.
Yes.
So because you got to get them to burn some GLs, and if they don't burn any GLs before they get to your back, like since I've started doing that, I've gone up against 2 players now that have saved all their GLs for offense, and they have not been able to full clear me.
Yeah.
With me only setting 3 GLs, because I'm also setting teams like Darth Revan and Gas and things like that. So a lot of players are still using GLs to counter Gas and Darth Revan,
Yeah.
and so that doesn't leave them enough GLs to deal with the GLs that I put in the back. So putting GLs up front is a new change that I'm going to do pretty much from here on out. It's just a question as to whether or not I put any behind them, depending upon whom I'm playing. And then I'm pretty much sacrificing the North Zone and hoping that my executor can get me a win, because when I go up against someone else that sets it, I'm going to probably lose. At least just the way Fleet goes. I mean, you're not going to one shot another executor, especially a 7-star. But
Yeah.
that. So to your point of setting a strong defense, yes, absolutely. That's because in Division One, let's be honest, you've got players at the top of Division One that have people helping them out. I'm sure that there's some people out there that have heard rumors of other people helping other people, like setting an easy defense so they can be in the top 5, whatever. And yes, that actually does happen. And so, I mean, unless you know people and you're a famous person, whatever, chances of you getting in the top 10 of a GAC are pretty slim, let alone top 5. So, if you just want to, like you said, be consistent, get Zetas, get more Zetas that way, and
Slice mats.
more mats and things like that, then by all means, setting the tougher defense is the way to go.
Yeah, and the caveat is that you want to make sure that you're full clearing or clearing enough to comfortably get Kyber if you're a Kyber type player. So you definitely have to, don't go out and listen to this podcast and then, tomorrow in your GAC match, set all of your GLs on defense and then try to, and then curse me when you don't clear a single thing.
But Lab said
that's right. If there's nuance to it, but I stronger defense is a lot of times a better play than trying to match people blow for blow and be an efficiency player. You have to be on top game 100% to be able to pull that off all the time. And most players can't do that. The one other nice little benefit that you get from setting a strong defense routinely is that the good players who scout you, they will see that you set a strong defense and they will keep more for offense. And then you will not have to deal with as much when you go in to face their defense. So, if there's an equal number of GLs on each side of the board, the player who set more on defense is going to usually have the advantage because GL on GL battles are typically kind of messy. And you can, those A and below tier teams, you can usually come out with better banners than you can with, GLs on GL. So you typically get an advantage if you can set a stronger defense. So that would be that's kind of the last thing that was really reinforced during our time in Division One together, is that stronger defense definitely won us. I mean, at least 3 matches where it otherwise wouldn't have. There was the only match that we didn't place a strong defense was against Solo Base, and we had a very specific strategy in place for him.
And even then, it took some pretty good RNG and luck for us to win that. I mean, it did help that he thought that we had a strong defense behind and we didn't, because he tried saving some things for the back that he wouldn't have otherwise. So that's where your history comes into play, and depending upon what you set in the past, you can use that to your advantage.
Absolutely. All right, so I have run out of material for this particular podcast, but I'll open it up to you in case there's anything else that you want to say to all of the fans. There are dozens of them, literally dozens.
Literally, and by now they're dwindled to like 2 or 3, I'm sure, after like an hour-long podcast. But yeah, so for the 2 or 3 handfuls of people that are still out there, I just wanted to take the opportunity to thank Lab for all of his help, just because, I mean, I wouldn't have learned what I learned from the GAC that we did, and 2, I mean, it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun doing that and coordinating things and playing in parking lots or wherever it was that we were playing to try to coordinate things together at the same time with between that and real life, and it was a good time. And maybe we'll be able to do something like that again. Maybe not to that extent, but maybe a few battles here and there would be fun. So yeah, it was good, and I appreciate it very much. And he knows his check is in the mail, but it's going by carrier pigeon, so God knows where it is right now.
It is. It's right alongside my letter to Hogwarts, probably.
Yeah, exactly.
All
For
right.
sure.
I really appreciate your time. Thanks for coming on and sharing some of your insights. And we'll definitely we'll have to have you on at some point later, whether it's for GAC or something else. But definitely appreciate it, and all the best to you.
Absolutely. Same to you. And maybe we could start like you got the two MFers. Maybe we have the two idiots.
Two
And
idiots.
it'd just be perfect. All right.
Yeah,
Well,
we'll do it with
thanks.
all the free time that we both have.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. So, all right.
All right,
Well,
buddy.
thanks again for having me.
All right. Thanks everyone for listening. This has been another episode of Just a Tip, and peace out.